I mean, you mentioned it, but how important it is that we're all trained to have trauma-informed care.
Mhm.
So not just our clinical staff, but
Yeah.
other people on staff. So when anyone walks in the doors of Peace Restored, they're cared for in that way because we all are trauma-informed. And there is such a difference in care when you're trauma-informed and when you're not. And I think a lot of people have experienced one or the other, and it's hard to explain, but when you experience it, it's a lot different, and that's something I'm really glad that we do at Peace Restored. And um, it is hard to sit in that space with clients, but it's also, like we said, like we really do think it's a privilege to be in that space with them.
So we just ended 2023 and now we're starting 2024. And I think as most of us at the end of a year, we really start thinking about what we did. I know personally, I think a lot about, when I reflect on my own life, I think about, what did I go through in 2023? What have been my experiences? What have I walked through? Do you guys tend to spend time at the end of the year reflecting personally?
Actually, it's funny when I go through like the end of the year, I'm like always go through my pictures and like starting
Oh,
in
that's
January and go
fun.
back through, and it was fun to see all the things because I just don't remember
Yeah.
um throughout the year as well, but
Ah,
pictures are fun like
that's
that.
such a good idea. I don't
It,
think I've ever done through pictures.
it helps when your anniversary's in January.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
back through and
Oh, do you do that as part of your anniversary,
yeah, I
like
like try to post
remembrance?
like for the year, like what we
Oh,
did, and but
that's a good idea.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I like that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Is
don't
that
take enough pictures, but
no. Yeah.
I actually found I don't take a lot of pictures of us. That's one thing I'm gonna try to work on this
Hmm.
year, but because
Yeah,
I have
that's
a lot of random pictures, but I'm like, this is not
huh.
a fun little chair in the corner that I wanted to
Yeah.
sell or
Yeah, yeah. But it still brought back memories.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's interesting to do that because I usually when I reflect on when I'm thinking through what's happened, I look at my calendar
Oh yeah.
and I'll sometimes scroll through my calendar for the year. Or I just sit and reflect on what's happened. How do you reflect back?
I just sit and reflect on what's happened. It's not very formal.
That's okay. I don't, yeah.
But I don't really look at anything. I just try and think of things that have happened throughout the year.
Hmm.
And I'll usually start writing. Well, I guess that's not true that I don't look at anything. I journal a lot.
Yeah.
So I'll look at that.
Okay. So you
That's
kind of
cool.
think through your thoughts and feelings and emotions, whatever you're processing. That's really good too.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
look back through your journals for the year, or do you just kind of sit and think and journal about it?
Both.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's really good. It's that idea of stopping to reflect. And I think we all naturally do that individually and personally. But I think as we think through life in general, and I think the life of Peace Restored, I think it's important for us to pause and think, man, what have we been through in the last year as an organization, as a business, professionally, right? Because it really helps, especially for us as a newer, I still kind of think of us as a newer business. I know we just celebrated our 8th anniversary this last year, but I still think of us as a new business. Um, I don't know I don't know when I won't feel that. Maybe it's when we get to, I don't know, get to a different cadence rhythm. But I think of us as a newer business, and I think that as we're reflecting on things, it really helps us see where we've grown and how where we've done well, and where we need to do better.
Yeah.
And so I spend a lot of time at the end of every year, kind of going through, the fun data, thinking through like numbers. And I'm not really a numbers person per se, but when I go through the data, I do find it quite interesting to help me kind of
Yeah.
reflect on um, what we've done. Because I don't know about you guys, but as we think about the clients we serve and the things that we do, sometimes it can all run together in my brain.
Yeah, I saw the numbers recently, and it really just paints a different picture.
Hmm.
Because I'm very visual, but the data points really did, like, I don't know, it was like a different weight to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Cause I remember looking at the data points and seeing the numbers, right, and I was like, I didn't think I mean, I know, like, that we've done a lot, but then
Hmm.
seeing it, actually in a measurable way,
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, we It's didn't
Yeah.
even"
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look what we were able to do together. Our collaborative efforts resulted in these numbers.
Yeah.
And that really puts a definition to who we are as an organization. So when you guys have all had time to look at the numbers, was there one in particular number set or data point of, especially in the client serve data, um, was there one of those that kind of stood out to you in particular that you're like, man, that one really made me think?
The one that we provided 814 group and class hours
Okay.
was just like very, I don't know, it's such a collaborative effort, but that's
Mm-hmm.
such a big number, and
Yeah.
that's just direct time with clients, serving them and
Yeah.
being with them. And I don't know, it was just so cool to think about
Yeah.
that one specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of time invested because that's just the time we were working with the clients directly.
Right.
That doesn't even count the prep time
That's true.
that we invested in
Oh,
all the clients.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because I
Wow.
think if we think about, we talked about the 814 hours, right? But for every hour, I'd say we invest at least one or two, probably more like 2 more hours for work for every hour into that program. So it'd probably be at least double that in
Right.
prep time. So when you add that together, we have another 1,600 hours we invested, plus the 800. So now we're up to 24 hours invested. That's a lot of time.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
The time number isn't what stood out to me the most. It was the savings to
Mm-hmm.
clients. That one stood out to me just as we've grown and we, offer individual based
Mm-hmm.
like fees for care and just seeing that we how well we've worked with clients and
Mm-hmm.
met them where they're at. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think let's expand a little bit on that for those who are listening and don't really understand how we operate as an organization is we really are intentional about what we charge or any fees that are associated with anything we do because what we really believe is continuity of care for as long as the client needs.
yeah.
And we want to make sure our fees or that are associated with anything we do, it really works with their individual budget. It's not a set like, it's very unique. We do what we call a negotiated rate with each client. And so when we do that, it gives space because the average cost of counseling, do you guys know what it is? Average cost of counseling in Indiana is?
I don't know what it is in Indiana, but I know it can be like well over $100,
Mm-hmm.
and for classes and groups, it's even more
Yeah,
than that. That's just like what I said is just the individual rates I've seen,
right.
so it gets pretty high.
And per hour.
Yeah, per
Yeah,
hour. Yeah. So right now it's anywhere between, like you said, 100 to about two to 250 nationwide. It's kind of like the average in that. It's a big swath, right? But here in the state where we're geographically located, it's like that 125 range. So when we look at the number of hours we provide and we put that in a dollar number, we provided $68,000, $68,625 is what we provided in counseling services. And then when we look at the groups, we provided $40,000 and groups services out there. But Taylor, to your point, so that comes to like a little bit over 108, almost $109,000 that we provided in service when we put it in a dollar value, right? Um, but to your point, how much we were able to provide, what percentage of that did we provide at no cost to our clients? Well, so what percent was covered by the organization versus the clients?
91.5%.
Yeah.
That was-
Sorry, that was a test question and
I
I
was
didn't
like,
prepare you
I,
well. It's okay. So yeah, 91.5%, right? Was covered by the organization. So so we were blessed by so many people who came together to help meet those needs. The Lord really showed up in that and
Yeah.
really helped us do that. So that was pretty powerful. I thought so too, as I was working through those numbers. Were there other numbers that you guys resonated with you at all? If whether it's in the client data numbers. I looked at I love that we had 109 new intakes this year. And one of the things that I love that we do with our clients is we give them a welcome gift. So it meant we gave out over 100 welcome gifts provided to our clients. And so I think that's pretty special.
Yeah.
They get a journal and all kind of things that are really personal to help them start working through their journey, as you guys know. And so I mean, I just love that part of what we do. I think it's so special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love walking in after the welcome meetings after they've had their intake session, and sometimes they're crying, and sometimes they're, but
Mhm.
there's always a heaviness, and then I walk in with a little gift bag, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Here you go." We're not just sending them out,
Right.
that way, that their first
Yeah.
time meeting us. So I think it's really helpful, and um, I think they feel really taken care of when we do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it's always fun when, like, you ask me to like, "Oh, someone's dropping by to pick up the gift bag," like, and they're always like, "Oh, wow," and they keep looking and like, "Oh, wow, a book and a
Yeah.
journal and pens," and we're
Yeah.
always very grateful and excited, and it's fun.
Yeah. We love loving on our clients. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that we all enjoy doing, loving on them and showing that they have value, that they're not just another number.
Mhm.
We want to care for them well. And I think part of that is through the welcome gifts and the welcome meetings. And, we just, as if you're listening to us, you're hearing us use the word welcome a lot, is because we want people who come through our doors to feel very welcome.
Yeah.
Well, this last year also was our first year of for our first full calendar year of doing a podcast. And that, we're all still learning. We are by no means professional podcasters, but I think we've learned a lot in this last year. But I was really surprised when the year end numbers came out with the podcast, of how many views we had. I don't know about you guys, but I was pleased with where we ended our year with the podcast. What were kind of your takeaways for the podcast for this last year? Thoughts that either of you had on them?
Well, my first thought was the fact that we were able to be consistent with the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and how helpful it is, like having that consistency, especially in a podcast.
Mm,
And um, I also was pretty surprised by the numbers that the podcast got just in the
mm-hmm.
first year, because I mean, I have no idea what the average is for a
Yeah,
first
I don't
podcast,
either.
but I mean, for us, I think it was really exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when we first launched the podcast, I was always like, "Oh, how many views did it get? How many views?" But it
right.
never like, but seeing it all together for the year, because I'd stopped
Mm-hmm.
looking and I was like, "Wow,
Right.
that's really, really cool that at least that many times we were heard." And
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, because I think sometimes we look at views by like likes or comments,
yeah,
and the interactions aren't always the same as the listens or the views or
Mm,
whatever,
Yeah.
depending on how they're seeing our podcast. And so to see the number it was close to 3,000 is what we got to by the end of the year. It was, I think, a 2.6 or 2,600, however you want to look at that, number of views streams of our podcast, which I thought, as you guys were saying, I think that's pretty good. I'm sure there's podcasts out there that have done way better than that, but for a new upstart that's never done anything like this, I was pleased that I'm hoping that our audience is finding value in what we're providing.
Yeah.
So as I say that, I kind of think like if somebody's listening to this and like they have an idea for a topic, to reach out to us, let us know. We want to make sure we don't want to just do this just because we like to hear ourselves talk.
yeah,
We want
Yeah.
to put out good content and things that are of value to those listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
really liked that it gave us a new way to reach people or interact with them.
Mhm.
Because like when they found out it was podcast, oh, I can listen to this in my car. Oh, like I
Yes.
get to, and it is cool, like, watching people discover that, and then they'd come
Mhm.
back and tell me they liked it or
Yeah.
however mu that was really
Yeah.
fun.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd really like that too. Whenever I tell people we have a podcast, the reaction is always similar to that. And then I
Mhm.
don't always get to hear feedback about it, but they're always really excited. And then I tell them like the different topics, and they'll usually narrow down which one they're the most interested in based on what I said. And then, I mean, they definitely go listen to it. I just don't always get the feedback from it, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It is good to hear some of the feedback from people when we do get it, because it is helpful so we know what to do. I remember one of the shelters that we've gone to for doing some of the services we provide um in-house. There were some ladies there that said they were listening to our podcast. I was like, oh, I'm so glad. Or were they or the same thing, they get excited, like, oh gosh, you guys have a podcast, I can listen to you when you're not here. And that's just such a it's humbling to know that people want to listen to what we're doing, and we love that we can give this as a gift, out to the community, and we can really invest in others through this. Because, it takes time to do the podcast, and we want to make sure that they're valuable. As we kind of think about 2023, I think we'd be remiss not to stop and really reflect on all the events we did last year. We did a lot of different events.
did.
And that's a lot of Grace's wheelhouse. And Grace does a lot with prepping the events and everything. But man, we did a lot last year. And I probably missed some on the list that I put together. So if you guys think of something that's not on here, we can obviously talk about that too. But if there's what was one of your favorite events that we did last year?
Ooh. My favorite, it was the first time we ever did this one. It was fun. It was the trivia night.
Yeah,
And it
that was really
such
fun.
a different thing because I mean, I always enjoy the golf outing. It's a lot of work, and it's very gratifying when it comes. But the trivia night was just a different sense
Yeah,
and a different environment. It was very light and fun, and
yeah,
it's a cool way to interact with people.
yeah. It was very low key for us as
Yeah.
staff, but we still got to interact with people. But like I said, it was really a fun night. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I did enjoy that one. Yeah.
I didn't get to be at the trivia night, but I heard how fun it was, and I was pretty sad that I couldn't be there. But I heard that one was really fun. But my favorite was probably the mother-daughter tea, especially because I got to come with my mom.
Yeah.
That was special.
Yeah, and be here, and it was like somewhat formal, not like we're not super formal, so I don't want to give the wrong impression, but it was really nice. And then I during the tea I got to get up and say like a couple of words because Renee asked us, like to talk about our moms, and I got to embarrass my mom, which was really fun.
It's a role reversal.
Yeah.
Growing up.
A positive embarrassment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you shared some stories about your mom, if I remember, or like fond memories or fond stories. Yeah.
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 It was fun.
It
It
was
was also
good.
our first time doing a Mother's Day tea.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, it was our first one. Yeah, so that was a fun event as well.
Yeah.
I think I was trying to think through. I don't know if I was trying to think. I used the word favorite, so now I'm feeling stuck on that. But I will say a couple of events that kind of stuck out. One, we had a local church invite us in to do a workshop day with their ladies there, and so we did a workshop on grief and loss. So that was a really good day. That was actually in January of last year, so it's been a whole year since we've done that.
Wow.
But that was really a really good day, and it gave us opportunity to interact in different ways. And then I really enjoyed, we did a Better Together event up on the north side of Indiana, getting to interact with a different audience. It was an event with like-minded people of faith. And so that was really encouraging as well, just to be around people and we could be encouraged together. So that was, again, a different rhythm from our normal major events that we do. But just to have something different, that was really, I don't know, just different and fun. I'm looking forward to some of the events that we're doing this coming year. But I think we're going to keep many of the ones that we did last year, right,
Yeah.
Grace?
We are. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then I just think about it overall from the organization, there were so many things that just happened in 2023. There was a lot of highlights we had. And then and I also think about just our interaction with clients, like things that have been said or done. There's some really fond memories that we have with our clients from this last year. And those are some of my favorite things to reflect on of their interactions with our clients. We've had some very sweet moments with our clients and some very hard moments in 2023. Some moments where I think it took us all to our knees, and it really, was very hard and challenging. And then there was moments that were just full of joy, that we just it's just that really big pendulum of emotions that we go through here, and
yeah.
we just don't know, but it's really quite, it is our privilege, as we say, to be able to walk alongside of the ladies that we walk alongside of, and just to be able to share their stories.
Yeah.
If there was one story or one thing that you can share, obviously within the realm of confidentiality, that pops into your mind from this last year? Is there something that either of you would want to share when you think about any of our clients or experiences you had this year interacting with clients, or just a general feeling or something, just a generality with our clients, anything at all?
One was recent. It was we had someone come in and they offered to donate
Mm,
some presents for Christmas
yeah.
for some clients in need. And we were able to identify some and they dropped them off all wrapped, and they went above and beyond. It was beautiful.
Mhm.
And then our clients came to pick them up and they were just blown away and just brought to tears with that, and
Mhm.
just the impact it left on them was really profound
Yeah.
and special to be a witness and a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to be here. There were 2 clients that got those gifts, and I got to be here for one, and she was just so grateful and overwhelmed that,
Mhm.
um, that was able to happen for her.
Yeah.
And the other interaction I was thinking of was, I I'm trying to think how to say this, like, with confidentiality. Um, so I guess this is kind of like general. Clients have done this before with us, but they call and we like help facilitate getting them out of domestic violence situations.
Mhm.
And there was one in particular from this past year that I remember really well. And
Mm.
I've just I mean, we develop a relationship with all of our clients,
Mhm.
but I've gotten to just interact with her a little bit more than I normally do. And um, just because well, I'm in the office more now, but just part of that is just because I don't live in Indiana, but just getting to interact with her and see the way that she's grown from when I first had that point with her, and that's been really encouraging and fun to watch.
Mhm.
That's cool being a part of their day one of their journey and then
Mhm.
watching them through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were talking, Taylor, I was being reminded how I was thinking of at least three, if not more. I think there was multiple. I think there's way more than three, but three pop into my mind in particular of clients who were impacted directly by suicide this year.
Mm.
Mm,
And so, it's just, again, it's a really hard space, but one of the things that always sticks out to me when these ladies come to us and this is their story, right, is that they're so grateful that they found a place that works in the space of suicide,
Mm.
because there aren't a lot of places that work in that trauma space, and they're grateful because they felt alone. They felt maybe judged or put in a box, because suicide does have such a stigma to it. And they don't always, people don't always know how to navigate through that well. And so I'm just sitting here reflecting on the conversations I've had with a few ladies that have either um, that have been walking through that suicide experience, that happened in their lives, and how it's affected them, and just the joy, meaning the joy that we get to walk alongside, not the joy of their experience, but the joy of being invited into that space, because it's we do that with a joyful heart, meaning that we're grateful that we get to do that with them, that they trust us through that, because man, they've been through so much. And
yeah.
that we get trusted to be in that very intimate, private space. That's huge. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I think that's as you're talking about that, it's just making me think. I mean, you mentioned it, but how important it is that we're all um, trained to have trauma informed care.
Mhm.
So not just our clinical staff, but
Yeah.
other people on staff. So when anyone walks in the doors of Peace Restored, they're cared for in that way because we all
Mhm.
are trauma informed. And there is such a difference in care when you're trauma informed and when you're not. And I think a lot of people have experienced one or the other, and it's hard to explain, but when you experience it, it's a lot different, and that's something
Mhm.
I'm really glad that we do at Peace Restored. And
Mhm.
um it is hard to sit in that space
It
with
is.
clients, but it's also like we said, like we really do think it's privileged to be in that space with them.
As you're talking about that, Taylor, it makes me think about how intentional Renee has been in training the whole care team on trauma-informed care.
Yeah.
And it's not that we haven't worked on it in the past, but man, that has been really her something that she's really been super intentional about, and especially in the last year or so, of making sure everybody on staff understands what trauma informed care is, understands how to walk through that. Not just the care team, but she's done training with the support staff as well. And because it's important, whether you are working at the front desk, doing a fundraising event, working with a donor, it doesn't matter. You need to know what that means. And
Yeah.
so that's something that I think we've done really well as a staff over this last year, is really developing ourselves and our training. And as we're kind of thinking about training, I think back on our retreat that we did this last year. You guys remember our retreat?
Yep.
Yep. Yep. What are some, this was our first time that we did an extended time overnight like this, I think. I mean, we did the last time we did something
It
at
wasn't
an offsite,
overnight.
it wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
And this was the first time we had an extended, because it was 3 days offsite together. And it was, I think we had a really good time. We really grew a lot together as a staff. What were some of your takeaways from the retreat that we did this last year?
I just really enjoyed the team building aspect
Mm-hmm.
of it. I felt a lot closer to everyone, and it was just a really refreshing time. Were some of my
Yeah.
just memories of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with that. I I always appreciate the time I get to be when I'm with the team, because like I mentioned before, I'm not local, so it's always really helpful to sit in that space. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing I remember, I mean, I remember like quite a bit of the training too, but one thing that comes to mind a lot is when we all made dinner together.
That was
Um,
fun.
yeah, that was really fun, and I
Yeah.
think just seeing how people are wired and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
doing that was a really fun activity to do together.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a full 3 days together. But I mean, I just think we used our time well. I think we learned a lot about each other, which I think is important from a team standpoint. And then we learned a lot about who we are as an organization, where we're going, why we're going the direction we're going, and it just really helps solidify us as our mission.
Yeah.
When you guys think about other things that were kind of highlights for the year that happened, was there any other highlights that stood out to you, or things that you were like, when I think back on 2023, this is the thing that kind of resonates for you for Peace Restored?
I A lot of times I think of the Women's Day of Prayer at the State
Mm-hmm.
House. That was a really neat event. I've never experienced something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I, that's funny because I remember it specifically, not just because it was an incredible event and because you spoke at the event, but because I remember specifically someone was speaking, and because I was at
Oh.
the State House, I was like, and I was very like emotional because of what they were saying. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I can't cry. I can't cry.
Yeah.
And Renee was like, pulled me aside. And I've started just letting myself cry after this. But she pulled me aside and she was like, if you feel like you need to cry, you can cry.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I remember that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She's really good about being present and recognizing what everybody needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. It was a good day at the State House. Just that being one in a different space, and then just seeing all these women come together, like-minded, wanting to pray. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people of authority too. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very cool. Um,
Yeah.
I also saw a lot of pictures of it when I was going back through my year because
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
but that was a special memory.
Yeah, it was. Can you think of an event for you, Grace, that stood out in the last year?
One I really enjoyed, we were invited to be the nonprofit highlight at the Synergize
Mm,
event, and that was just such a cool space to be in. The energy that that group has and
yes.
the way they interact is very different. but they're very genuine people, and it was really
Sure.
cool to be invited in. And they're all very generous, and they shopped our store well and listened well to our cause, and it was a very cool space.
Yeah, it was really, really good to get to know people. Not just in our normal, I guess, community geographically,
Yeah.
but our expanded community, because I always think about, wow, we're geographically located here in southern Indiana. That isn't where all of our clients come from. And so it's so good for us to get out into the community to meet people in different areas, because we do have clients that come from all over the state of Indiana, all over the country, the
Oh,
world.
yeah.
And so it was so good to get to meet this different group of people who have just a heart, just a servant's heart. They
Oh,
just want
yeah.
to serve and give back to others. And just their energy, like you said, was pretty contagious.
Oh, yeah. It
Yeah.
was very fun. It was, they to give context, like, you speak on top of tables, and, like,
Yeah.
if you're the
Yeah.
speaker, they had him climb up too, and,
Yeah.
I don't think they used a mic, I think they just
Nope.
yelled.
They're like, just go ahead and talk loud. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not me. Like, you'll have to listen closely.
Wow.
I will try to talk loud, but I don't project. And so anyways, I don't know, they might have found me a mic, but I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but I remember it was definitely, I was standing up on top of something, and Taylor's like, this is new information to me.
Yeah.
This new information. I mean, I knew about the event, but I didn't know we were standing on tables.
Oh,
So.
yeah. But even with that, like, light atmosphere, they're all fun. When it was time to get serious, they all leaned in and were ready to receive too. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they did definitely. They all got quiet when it was time to
Yeah.
listen and was very respectful of that
Oh, yeah.
space. Yeah. This year we also did our first college fair in person, so that was fun too. So we went to Franklin University and attended their college fair and was able to interact with many of their students, and their students came so prepared. There were so many of them that came by our table with resumes. So it was a
Oh,
really good
wow.
experience for Renee and I to kind of just be there for the day, because expanding our internship program has really been a steady focus of what we've been trying to do over what we are doing the last couple of years. And so now we're being more intentional by trying to get out into the university. So that was it. I always enjoy being out in the community and doing things. I love to connect with people. I love to talk to them. And so that was a fun day for me as well. So yeah. Another event that I kind of think of that we don't really talk about much, but was something different that we did this year, was I was invited to go down to kind of a private event in Jasper. You guys remember that? Where I went down there and was just really was able to tell stories and cast some vision with these ladies and really just talk to them. And so it was really something out of our normal rhythm that we would do, but it was fun to get to do and fun to get to be in that space and interact with a different group of people.
Yeah.
So if there was, as we're kind of wrapping up our conversation on thoughts and memories of 2023, if you were to summarize the year,
Ooh.
I know,
it's hard.
I know, what would be kind of a summary point that you would think of for 2023 for Peace Restored? I know. Surprise question. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse saying this, but I think of the word growth. That's pretty much all I think of. Just, I mean, even just talking about the events we did that are so different from our normal events, and being able to shift that, and just all the changes we've gone through, and the way that's pushed us forward to the vision for Peace Restored. I just think there's been a lot of growth. It's been uncomfortable sometimes and hard,
Yes.
but I think looking back, I'm glad we've had that, and I'm sure we'll have more.
Yeah.
Because I think last year you used the word growing pains, or the words growing pains, a lot.
Yeah.
And now, and I didn't always feel them at the time. And now looking back, I'm like, that was a growing pain. That's why I was like, that's why things were more stressful at that period of time, or things like that. And I think it's been really helpful and good. And I'm like, more excited to see what happens in 2024.
Yeah. I definitely agree with growth. I would also add provision.
Oh, yes.
Provision within opportunities, provision within finances, seeing God come through there, provision, just, I mean, in every area.
So many ways, right?
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah. But always at the right time.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very cool.
As listening to you talk to, either of you remember back to January of 2023, I shared with you guys a word that what I felt like God was leading for us to go into 2023 with. Do you guys remember what that was?
Was it growth?
It was growth.
I thought so.
2020.
I was like, that feels
I
too.
remember.
Yeah.
Do you get like, so we started out the year and I told you, we talked about how I felt like God was going to take us into a season of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he did.
And it really was, right? It was a tremendous, like Taylor had mentioned, it was tremendous growth, both on many levels for us as an organization. And with that did come growing pains. But we were able to persevere through that, and we're at a different place as an organization, and it's a good place. And I love how you talked about provision, Grace, and how through the provision, and I think we'd be remiss to say that God really stepped in so many ways and provided for us in 2023. There's many things that obviously we don't share publicly with the whole community, but I can say with complete confidence that if it wasn't for his provision, we wouldn't be where we are today. That he's been faithful this whole time, this whole journey with Peace Restored. And man, this year has not been a disappointment in that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting to think about both those things because I think it's helped us all trust the Lord a little bit more as we've seen him provide for Peace Restored. And then I think at times it felt like, what are you doing? Because like there's all these things happening and it's like, how are we going to take this next step? Like what's, and some doors in that closed that we thought maybe were going to be open, but then having the perspective now, like that was for a reason, and just trusting that what he's going to see us through.
Yeah, it's in his timing.
Yeah, I feel like I've had such a cool seat in this story because I feel like part of the time I feel like I'm watching a story unfold or watching a testimony come true, and like it's been really neat in my time here.
Yeah,
the from where we start, I mean, a year and a half ago to now is very great, and it's definitely been a powerful experience. So
I don't know if it'll surprise you to hear me say this, but I feel that way often as well, where I feel like I'm just an observer watching all these things unfold.
Yeah. Well, that does surprise me because I do feel like I don't know.
Yeah.
You're in everything.
Right.
But I do understand that. Yeah, that's fun.
Because I do feel like Peace Restored is its own entity. It isn't any one of us.
That's been a shift.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Yeah. It is. I think one of the things we've been trying to be really intentional about is making sure this is an organization that is a reflection of what Christ wants it to be, what the Lord wants it to be. And it is, we are along for the ride.
Yeah. It's come with opening hands and letting things go and holding on to what matters. So
you say that, and it reminds me, and I'll kind of close here, is of when I first started Peace Restored, when I was meeting with a lady back when this was just an idea. I was sitting I was at a retreat or at a conference, a women's conference. And I was thinking about this idea of starting this thing of helping people, like, how do I do this? What does this look like? I had the name Peace Restored and the idea of helping women. That's all I had at the time. And I kept being drawn to just go and pray and just keep thinking about it. So I was at this conference and I don't remember much about the conference except for who was the main speaker and the prayer room. Those are the two things I remember about the conference. And and the lady who came and sat with me in the prayer room, and she sat with me, and I was telling her my story, and I was telling her things that were being laid on my heart. And the one thing she said to me is, and as you walk through the next few years, and you're trying to determine the steps that God's leading you to, do it with your hands wide open. Don't hold tightly onto anything. step into what he has for you and trust. And that's one thing I've tried really hard to do over the last 8 years. And hopefully we continue to do that moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.